Okay, good morning. So we're up to Shin Chof Aleph Seif Gimel. Today we'll be looking at salting and marinating salads and vegetables and things like that. Not such a well-known halacha, but it's also quite relevant. It does appear on a regular basis in our Shabbos lives. Says the Mechaber Seif Gimel. Also limloya chatichos tznoin arba eichamish. You're not allowed to salt radishes 4 or 5 at a go, biyachad, because it looks as if you're pickling. And pickling is also mishum kumavashal. It looks like you're cooking. So this is what you were mentioning yesterday. So what should you do? You take one radish at a time, you dip it into the salt and you eat it that way. So you don't just prepare lots of radishes or vegetables in one go, because that gives the appearance that you're being kovish, you're pickling the vegetables, and that is a problem because it looks like of bishul. But eggs and other things which you don't normally pickle, then it's where Chazal weren't geyser, and we're not worried about that. Okay, says the Mishnah Berurah, Yud Gimel, Tznoin. Vuadin, kol davar shetzorech melicha, and not just a radish, but any other thing which normally needs salt. Kagoin betzolim v'shumim, like onions and garlic, v'ugakus, which are pickled cucumbers, chayin, ubehedje kosav Rambam tznoin uchiyot tzibay. And the Rambam says exactly that. The Rambam says snoin uchiyot tzibay, radishes and other things. And we call makom near the davar in dark lich by shari, but things which are not ordinarily pickled will be okay. So two interesting footnotes. Number one, 15, he says, V'shir hamelach she'osa litna al gabi yerokas. How much salt are we talking about? So again, the Shulchan Aruch says in Shin Chof Aleph Sif Gimel, the Shulchan Aruch says you're not allowed to salt radishes, pichatiches snoin, 4 or 5 at a go, because otherwise it gives the impression that you're salting. It's like pickling, and then it's got a din of bishul. It looks like you're being mavashal. So the Mishnah Berurah is explaining hu adin kol davar shetzorech melicha. Anything else as well. So how much salt are we talking about? So he says in footnote 15, v'shir hamelach she'alsa litna al gabi yerakos das hagon of nism kareletz shehu afilu b'mashu. Doesn't have to be a lot of salt. Sometimes we pickling something, it means a lot of a very, very salty brine or something, but even a small amount of salt, putting it on a lot of vegetables in one go, is not allowed. Now also number 18, two interesting points. The first paragraph, let's say you've got pieces of vegetables which are not normally pickled when they're cut up. Kagoin agvanios or malafafonim, tomatoes and melons and things like that. If they're cut up, then and you don't normally pickle them in that way, then Rav Shlomo Zalman is matir. V'chein das Rabbi Yashiv. If the vegetables are normally cut up, and that's not normally the way of pickling it, so that would be okay. And then if you jump a paragraph to the bottom paragraph, this is perhaps the most relevant in terms of our Shabbos practice. He says v'salat yerakos shemuravim b'yerakos shedarchem kvisha im yerakos she'en darchem kvisha. So say for example you've got a salad, you're making a regular salad on Shabbos, and you've got things which are in the salad which sometimes they are pickled, for example cucumbers, radishes and things like that, and you've got other things which are not. So das hagonim nism karelis she'osa lemolchei, you're not allowed to pour salt onto this salad, elem kain noisin by kodim lochen shemen, that you've got to first put oil or indeed a salad dressing. Like we said previously, regarding salt water, if you put oil in the mixture before the melach in b'mayim or in the water before you mix it all together, then there are those who allow you to do it. So let me just read to you from the Shabbos Kitchen, and he talks about this, and this is let's see what he says. So salting. So it's forbidden to marinate any food item in a spicy liquid, e.g. vinegar, salt water, pickle brine on Shabbos. This rabbinic prohibition was enacted because marinating or pickling alters the quality of the food and is therefore comparable to cooking. So that's what we've seen so far in the Mishnah Berurah. The prohibition applies to all foods, including vegetables, e.g. pickling cucumbers, tomatoes or peppers, fish, e.g. pickling herring, and meat, e.g. corned beef. None may be marinated on Shabbos. Okay. Now, with salting, with most vegetables, salting is also included in the prohibition of marinating. Therefore, it is forbidden to salt vegetables other than those excluded below, except according to the following guidelines. So there are 3 key guidelines, which we've covered a few of them already. It is permissible to salt one single piece food item at a time, if it will be eaten immediately. So foods may also be dipped into salt one piece at a time, immediately before eating. So that's really that's the mechaber here. Also, because it's shenir kakovish kvashim, el metabel kol achas levada, that you can do one at a time. So that's number 1. Number 2, it is permissible to salt a large amount of food only if oil or some other similar liquid is poured on the food so that the sharpness of the salt is weakened. This liquid may be added either before the salting or immediately afterwards, but preferably before. So if you're making a salad and therefore you're adding some salad, he says now, for example, when salting a vegetable salad, one should add a liquid, e.g. oil, salad dressing to the salad, either after the salting or preferably beforehand. And then you've avoided it. Okay, I said 3, but there's 2. Okay, Beseda. Right, so let's go back to the Mishnah Berurah. We're up to Yusif Kotin Yudalit. So he says, Arba Echomish Biyachat. The problem is when you salt 4 or 5 vegetables together. But if each vegetable is separate, and nor does it look like ma'abed, the tanning, by adding salt to something, maybe it looks like tanning. When you're doing them all together, 4 or 5 vegetables lined up, even if you're going to eat all of them in one go, straight away, and you're not going to leave them there with the salt on it, that you're not planning on leaving it there, the vegetable will sweat and the bitterness will come out. Gamkein also, that would also be also, even if you plan to eat it in one go straight away, it's still a problem to salt 4 or 5 pieces of vegetables in one go. And if you do leave it with the salt on it, so that it sort of starts sweating like it would normally do, even if you do one piece, it's going to be a problem. Also medina. Just to sort of pour salt on it and leave it there for a while so it sweats it and sort of you're marinating it, even one piece is a problem. Not to salt it at all, but rather what you do is you take the vegetable and you dip it into the salt. Don't start pouring salt over it, because that, even with one piece, that looks like marinating it. And our minhag is we chop up the vegetables, the snow, the radish, very thinly. And you put it on a plate. And you salt it. And you pour some vinegar on it. If you cut it up, that means you got 4 or 5 pieces or more in front of you, and therefore it should be also. And therefore the only heta should be that you take the food and you dip it into salt rather than pouring the salt on it. Maybe, says the Mishnah Berurah, to justify the practice, is that since we're not leaving it to be mazia, to sweat, but rather you're putting some vinegar or other dressing or something else on top of it, it's not a problem of ibud, which is what we just said, that if you pour olive oil or any oil on top of it, first, that the oil has the effect of weakening the impact of the salt, and therefore you're taking away from the possibility that you're marinating it, and therefore it will be okay. In some places, I guess this is before the world of healthy living. In some places they have something called a salad, or molchin hayerek b'fnei atzmai techila, and they salt the vegetable on its own, or mashin oisoi kach, and they let it wait there for a while, or masanin hamayim, and then they drain away the water sheyetzim mimenu, that is sort of sweats out from the vegetable. V'achach ma'arvin oisem shemen zayis v'chometz v'zeh isu gomer v'domi tfeile ibud, because you're waiting a long time by salting it, and you're not adding the oil until much later. Because you want to, to wait until the salt has emerged as properly or whatever. So in short, we'll summarize it. We'll summarize a bit later. Okay, kovish kvoshim. So if you do that, if you add salt and you to several pieces, it looks like you're pickling. V'zeh tam hu Rambam. Now this is all of the above. The Mechaber is quoting is the Rambam's reason. That's why you can't salt many pieces at one go, because it looks like you're pickling. For Rashi nosen tam, and Rashi gives a different reason. Shaldei hamelach miskashim. The salt makes the vegetable hard, v'havitikun and v'domile ma'abed, and therefore it looks a bit like ibud. Now, very interesting. Is there enough gemina between the two reasons? Is it if it's a problem of kovish kvoshim, a pickling, or a problem of ibud? So the daf gemina could be, what about if you take sugar and you put it on strawberries and other fruits? People do that. That could be enough gemina. If you look at 24. He says the following. Okay, Tosfos asks us here in Rashi why he says different things in different places. Okay, V'lefi, sorry, not Tosfos. Tosefes Shabbos. Madua kosav Shulchan Aruch le'el as time shel Rashi. V'lu kosav kan time shel Rambam. Yeah, I was wondering that as well. But previously we were talking about ma'abed. That's what we spoke about yesterday. Now we're talking about kibush, and the Shulchan Aruch seems to be mentioning both. Okay, so here's the next thing. The next paragraph in 24. Ulefazer sukkah aperis, to sprinkle sugar over fruit. Shaderech lekoivsham besukah. Some people pickle them in sugar. Kosav hakseis hashulchan shetolu hadova b'tamim elu. So it's contingent on these two reasons. Sheledas Rambam shetam isam melichas eichlim hu mishum shenira hadova kekvisha. It looks like pickling. Hu adin she'also lefazal aperis sukkah, because that also gives the appearance kim shenira kekovish. Ulam ledas Rashi shetam isu mishum shenira hadova kiibud. Then yesh litnas din ze machlikas achreinim im efshel lahachshir bosar de pizu sukkah b'makom melach, whether then it's subject to that machlikas, whether it's shaykh ibud with sugar, not with salt. V'das hagon Rosh Hashanah Orach shelafi hasovim shetamo isim mishum ma'abed ein le'eser kain. It shouldn't be a problem. Kivan shel sukkah einoi meshana es tivam ala peris. Doesn't change the nature of the fruit. It jumps now to the back of the book. And Orach noisin bohem tam mashen kein b'melach shemeshana es gufadova. With salt, it changes the actual item. Sugar doesn't really. Meidach b'shal shuvas erletzian kosav shemusel lefazes sukkah gabe peris. He actually says it's fine to put sugar on fruit. V'chein das hagonim listen karelitz shem ein bedaita lahashir es hasukkah ga'amanas sheyisbeg is me'aperis musel lefazes aleihem. So that seems to be what people do. That to put sugar on fruit, there is certainly what to rely on. V'dafka nesinas melach, he says. Now this is quite interesting. Is dafka putting salt on it? Avon nesinas shar tavlinim, but other spices could go in, pilpul shachar, black pepper, kosvak says shulchan she'ein bo lemishum ma'abed v'lemishum kovish kvoshim. So that's quite useful to know. So if you want to put pepper on these sort of vegetables, then it's not a problem. Okay. Weiter. So the kosav ataz, we're one line into Sifkot and Tesvav. For kosav ataz, the mitam hashulchan aruch yesh tilmod to also lishbech yayin or sham mashkim lechli sheyesh bechometz. That it's problem to put wine into a bowl which has got vinegar. Kadesh shegam zeh yeh chometz, that it becomes like a bigger bowl of vinegar. To doim lekovish kavoshim, because that looks like you're pickling. To hamischaven sheisa hamaat sheshofich shom. Because the effect will be that if you pour some wine into a bowl of vinegar, it will become vinegary, and therefore it could be caught by this problem of marinating, of pickling. He says another problem is it looks a little bit like a weekday activity. If you're doing this in order to weaken the potency of the chometz, of the vinegar, that's okay. Chaim, to put cucumbers, but that they will pickle. Everyone agrees that will be a problem. Okay, and then finishing off, this is going on Sifkot and Tezayin. Yeah, but if lanichem yachad lefonov kadei lachlam miyad, where is this going on? Kovish koshin v'kovish also b'nei shum espashel. Yeah. So the reason why kovish is a problem is it looks like you're cooking. Says the Mishnah Berurah Sifkot and Tes Zayin. Afal gav The bavade ein bechiyuv. This is not proper cooking. She'ena teledes ha'or. It's not proper. It's not a teledes of a fire. Mikal makam also midrabanan. Okay. Va'eichla. So then we said at the end. Elemetabel kol achas levada va'eichla. You do one at a time. That would be allowed. Tekef, but eat it straight away. V'lav dafka tekef mamish doesn't mean mamish straight away. Not that you're leaving it for any degree of time. You're salting it and then you'll eat it pretty soon. Then lastly, the Mechaber says, "Avol beitz in mutar lemalchon." You're allowed to put salt on eggs. Because you don't pickle eggs. And the salt doesn't impact so much. Now, if you look at 28. This is also very short and relevant. This is the back of the sefer. He says, "V'chein melichas tapuchi adoma mevushalim oy avocado das agonim nissen karelitz shadina kamlichas beitzim," and therefore is mutar. So putting salt on avocados and on potatoes and things like that is no problem. So it's specifically a problem of salting lots of vegetables in one go. That gives the appearance of pickling. But putting it one at a time, or putting it on things which are not normally the derech to be kovish them, for example, eggs, avocado, potatoes, and things like that, that is all fine. Okay, let's just do one more halacha. Si'if dalet. Yesh mi shekosav shemutza litbol kama chatichas snoin achas levada. There are those who write that you're allowed to do pieces of a snoin, one achas levada, v'lanichem yachad lefonov kadei le'achlam miyad zu achazu. So you got a few pieces of radish in front of you and salt them in one go in order you can eat them straight away. But the Bezer says in the Mishnah Yutes, ein nira kavish kavashim, because that doesn't look like you're pickling it, because it looks like you're going to eat it straight away. Umashe kosav lanichem yachad lefonov, hainu sheyu muchonim lefonov lechol. They're all ready to eat in front of you. But they should not be touching, because that's apparently, I guess, how you pickle things. Miyad zu achazu, hainu shelo yisha zman orach. You're not going to wait a long time before you eat these things. That it would sweat a lot. Because then you're going to have it's going to be caught by the problem of ibud. That would be okay. But the minhag is that you actually take one bit at a time, you dip it into the salt, and do it that way around. Okay, let me just finish by just reading his sort of his conclusion over here. So he says there are foods which are excluded from this prohibition. So that's what we've just said at the very end of that Sif Gimel. He says the prohibition against salting does not apply to all foods, but only to those whose quality or texture can be altered by salting. This includes most vegetables, which tend to harden when salted, and beans, which soften when salted. Also included are bitter and pungent foods whose quality can be improved by salting. On the other hand, foods in which salt does not affect the real change, but merely adds flavor, are exempt from this prohibition. This applies to cooked meat, fish, eggs, avocados we saw, and similar foods. However, even such foods should not be salted far in advance of eating. Okay, fine. And then, so just as a practical applications, he says this: when served a plate of vegetables, either by itself or as a side dish, either together with a salad or something, the proper procedure is to salt only one piece at a time and eat it immediately. Only if a liquid dressing is applied to the vegetables may they all be salted at once. Okay, so quite a useful, practical learning. Okay, so we'll leave it there.